Hey, everybody, I'm Jason Mefford, and I'm here with Brad Miller. And today we're going to talk about another interesting topic. We're going to talk about walking into the unknown. Walking into the unknown. And it's funny, actually, when as Brad and I were talking about before we hit record, of course, a song jumped into my head too, right? It's a Tom Petty song called Into the Great Wide Open,
Mm,
and it kind of goes along a little bit with the theme that we're going to talk about today. Um, and one of my favorite lines, probably in all of music, is in that song, and it says, "A rebel without a clue." And so we're probably going to kind of tie that back into what we're going to talk about today. But Brad, walking into the unknown, right? So
yeah,
why is this a topic that we would be discussing on a spiritual podcast?
everything is spiritual. I mean, that's the
All
easy
right,
answer.
done. Podcast episode done.
Yeah, no, I mean that was easy. We'll see you guys next time. Oh,
Yeah.
um, but no, everything. I mean, everything is spiritual. From washing your hands to going for a walk. Everything in life there's a spiritual aspect to it, and so um, I mean,
Yeah, because they're,
which
they're
means we've got
they're
tons of topics we can talk about because everything is
well,
you
we
know
do, and I think it's interesting, and we'll get into this in another episode. I know deeper, but what you said, everything is spiritual,
mhm.
right? If you want it to be, right? If you want it to be,
Mhm.
because everything does have a spiritual side to it if you have the intention and you're looking and you're thinking about it that way, right?
Yep.
If not, then you're just kind of going through your day. There's still spiritual things that are happening. You're just not aware of it. You're just not placing attention on it. You're just not getting the benefit from it. And a lot of times, you're going down the rabbit hole of deeper and deeper kind of negative emotions when we're not thinking about it and kind of setting our intention and setting our uh, perspective, right, in a certain way. So
Yep.
okay, so I know there were a few different things that we kind of wanted to cover off on this of kind of going into the unknown, and I know, for people it's hard, right? Because we want to kind of know the end before we even start,
Mhm.
right? And it's like, well, if I go through door number one, I want to know what's there,
Mhm.
right? But that's not how life works. It's just like the game show. I can't remember which of the game shows it was. What's
Let's
behind
make a deal.
cover
Yeah.
number one? Is that make a deal? Okay. And it's like, well, you have to pick which one without knowing for sure what the
Mhm.
end is going to look like, right? And I think it's one of those. I was taught this analogy, early on, actually, in my religious, when I was younger, but I think it holds true from a spiritual perspective too. Is a lot of what we do is kind of based on, you know religion uses the word faith, right?
Mhm.
And of having blind faith and of just following and going with and having faith that things are going to work out. And it's kind of like, you get put in this dark room, right? Earth, our body, this dark room, right? And you want to know which way to go. But imagine, again, if it's a pitch black, dark room, you have no way of knowing where you're going, right? Especially if somebody spins you around a little bit, so you're disoriented. And so, if we don't see something physically, then we usually, a lot of us will just end up standing there.
Mhm.
But what if you had a little tiny candle in front of you and it didn't light the whole room, but it lit just a little bit to where you could take a few steps, right? And that's kind of how life is. And what we're talking about here, you're walking into the unknown, you're walking into the dark. You've got a little bit of light to see a few steps ahead of you, but you can't see the end. And that's just how the game is played, right? I mean, that's just how the game is. You might want the game, you might do a toddler tantrum, right? But this is the way the game is played here, right? And so I've
Mhm.
always found comfort in that, of realizing that maybe I can only see 1 or 2 steps ahead, but when I take those 1 or 2 steps, then I'll see another 1 or 2 steps ahead,
Mhm.
right? And we just have to be patient as we kind of go through it.
Yeah, no, that's terribly difficult for lawyers because we want to know what's going to happen. Like, what's the result going to be? If we do X, we want to know that that's going to be Y. I mean, the
Mhm.
whole legal system is kind of predicated on precedents, and when you've done X before, Y has been the result. So we like to say, well, okay, great. So now we know every time we do X, Y is going to happen. We can advise our clients that Y is going to happen. We can predict that, and we like that. And anything that doesn't follow that, if sometimes X is Y, sometimes X is 5, then like that just like, oh my God, what do we do? And like you said, a lot of times you just kind of stand still, knowing what's going on. And so it does take a lot of, I'll use your word, faith, to be willing to say, you know what, I don't know what X is going to lead to. It may be Y, it may be 5, it might be South Dakota. Don't know, but we're just going to take that step, and the light's going to show up a little bit further ahead of us, and then we'll see maybe another step or two ahead, and we'll just kind of go from there. And I love that analogy that you use about the dark room and the candle, because I think that's spot on what we're dealing with in life. Like, we don't
Yeah.
get the whole lit up room. Like, I can see everything in my office here, and you and yours or whatever, because the lights are on. But most of the time in life, we've just got this very small little picture. It's kind of like, I know a lot, back in the day, I used to play a lot of video games, and a lot of kind of these ideas where you're going off to battle, or you're building things or exploring, and you kind of have, the whole screen is black and dark except for just where you are. And every time you take a step, it opens up a little bit more of the map, and then you go another direction, it opens up a little bit more of the map. I mean, and that's really what life is just taking one more step, opening up a little bit more of the map, taking up another step. Um, and I know it's hard, again, for lawyers, for professionals,
Yeah.
accountants, I'm sure, to be able to do that. But like you said, that's the game we've got to play
Well, like
here.
you said, even though you and I are in our lit offices right now and we can see everything here, right? My blinds are closed, right? So that I have better lighting for the recording. So I can't see what's going on outside. I can't see through the wall that's next to me into the other room, right? And so even though it's lit up right here where I am, there's stuff right around me that I can't see, right? But I
Mhm.
can do some things, right? Like I could get quiet. I could get really quiet. I could go up to the wall and kind of listen, and I'd probably hear some things that would give me an idea of what's going on in the other room, right? Or I can sit here and again, the blinds are closed, but you can see, how when blinds are closed, you can see like a little bit of shadows or things going by.
Mhm.
And so I can see, and it's out on my front lawn, which is not a lawn in Arizona, but
Your front dirt.
my front dirt, right, and my
Sure, yeah.
trees. I can see if somebody's walking across. Right now, I don't know exactly what it is, but I can get a glimpse, right, if I'm paying attention, that something is going on out there, and then I can get up, I can open the blinds. That happened. That happened the other day, actually. It's like the house across the street from me is an Airbnb, and so whoever was there were a couple of dogs, and one guy, he just walked into our yard. And it's like, what the fuck, dude? It's like he had this little tiny rat dog too. It wasn't even like a big dog, right? And so I'm sitting in my office with my friend, and all of a sudden we kind of see like this shadow thing, right? And
Mhm.
so open up the blinds, and there's this dude walking on my property, right? And so
Mhm.
it's like, right? And so get up and go out the front door. And he's like literally, on my front sidewalk by my front door. And it's like, hello, we have a dog, and they wouldn't appreciate you coming over here and being on my yard, right? But again, if I hadn't been paying attention, or at least kind of seen out of the corner of my eye, that would have happened, and I never would have known, right? and
Mhm.
and I think that happens to us so much of the time if we're not paying attention. if we're not getting quiet, if we're not listening, a lot of those things that are going on in the dark, we can get clues even before we get there, but we don't know for sure and we can't control it for sure.
Yeah.
Right. Which I know kind of the control and the attachment to control is one of the things we wanted to talk a little bit about. And so,
Yep.
if we take like your lawyer example, let's say again, it's a trial, the case is going to trial. Now, again, you would have worked out, depending on which side you're on, you'd have your facts in place, you'd know what the law is, but there's some unknowns in that too, right? It's like, what judge did you get? Is it a judge decision or is it a jury decision? Right.
Yep.
And so again, all of a sudden you've got, a judge to consider, you've got people of the jury to consider as well. And again, you're going to do your best at kind of understanding, hey, Judge XYZ is this type of a person, he or she, really gets off on this or that or the other. And so you're going to kind of make your case that way. But at the end of the day, the judge and the jury are going to decide what they are going to decide, right? Regardless of what's presented. Again, we want to we want to believe, right? But if you have two compelling lawyers, one on either side, they're both going to put forth a good case, and a lot of times it ends up coming down to sometimes emotion and judgment of the judge or the people on the jury. So, and with that control, I think it's interesting because, like the example of the dark room, that there's a lot of people who, if they get in that situation, they're like, I ain't moving a step. I'm not going anywhere because I can't see anything. And I want to control everything. And so I'm just going to stand here and I'm not going to move. Right. Because they want to be able to control everything. They want to be able to see everything. And in their mind, kind of scenario plan everything out and think that it's going to work out the way that it does, but it doesn't always work out that way, does it, Brad?
Most of the time it doesn't. I mean, most like this, it's the idea that the best laid plans often go astray.
Yep.
So no matter how great you plan something, I mean, it's in the military realizes it that, you have the best plan in the world, but as soon as something happens, then it all just goes to hell. And so plans are great, but it's how you deal with it after that. And I think that's relevant here because you don't get so attached to what you expect or what you think's happening, or because that it doesn't matter.
Well, and I think it's funny, a lot of people in kind of the new agey and spiritual space talk a lot about manifestation and money and manifesting money. And, that's not what we're about, but I'm going to use that as an example too, is that, I think sometimes we try to control things, like from a business perspective. We might say, man, I really need, I don't know, $10,000 next month. I need this new client or whatever it is. Right. And so we focus on and try to do things to get, and again, I'm just making this up, we'll say $10,000, right? And so we get so fixed on, hey, I want this $10,000 and I want it to come from this particular client, right? And that's like manifestation mistake number 101, right? It's like, no, right? It doesn't have to come from that client. It doesn't have to be $10,000. In fact, trying to get it from that client, you're probably going into some coercion and manipulation and other things, lower vibration things where you don't want to be anyway. And what if instead, right, you don't get the $10,000 and it doesn't come from that client? And at the end of the day, you're like, motherfucker, right? Why, what happened, right? And most of the time we always see the downside of it, right? Like, what if it doesn't happen? What if it's zero? What if it's only 1,000? What if I can't pay my mortgage next month, right? And we go into all these negative emotions, but what if instead, what if it could be better than you even expected, right? Trying to control to where it's that client is going to pay me $10,000 is really limiting, right? Because then you're telling the universe, hey, I want this, but I only want it this way. Well, what if on the other side, the universe is sitting there thinking, well, Brad, there's this other person over here who's gonna love working with you, and they want to pay you $50,000. Are you sure you don't want them? Right? But we're so busy, like la 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 la. No, it has to be that client. It has to be $10,000, right?
Yep.
And often, so we're limiting ourselves in our possibilities as well. And it's not just
Mhm.
money related, right? I mean, this can be, any different thing. And I know in my life, I've seen this so often where I've thought something was going to happen a certain way and it doesn't. And at first, I'm probably a little disappointed, right? I'm getting better as I'm evolving, but sometimes I might find myself kind of disappointed, like, well, it didn't happen the way I wanted it to.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden I look at it differently and I'm like, whoa, it happened way better than I even could have expected it happening, right? But
Mhm.
because it wasn't the way I thought I wanted it to be, because I was trying to control it, sometimes that kind of comes into play.
Yeah, no, I mean, we live in a universe of unlimited possibility. Like anything can happen. And like you said, I think sometimes we get so fixated on a certain way that we want something to occur. Like you said, it's got to be this way from this person and this method. And, it's got to be red and, all these other things. And we really limit down what options are out there. And like you said, oftentimes there are better things out there for us. We don't realize what out there that may be better. We think that, yes, I want it in this way, I want it to be red and I want it to be, just like this. But what if it can be twice as good, like your money example, $50,000 from a different client versus 10, because for whatever reasons. And when we start to focus so much on that one, we kind of preclude other things from happening. And so, I mean, like you said, we're telling the universe, hey, you know what? I know, yeah, I don't care what you're going to do. That 50 grand, I only want it this way.
Yeah.
Like, and so you're kind of, flipping the universe off and saying, screw you, I want it my way. And like, that's
The
probably
the
not
taunt
the
the toddler tantrum again, right?
right with the universe. And that's probably not the response you want to have to the universe, who can basically give you anything and everything. But yet
Yeah.
you're saying, well, screw you. I want it I've got to have it my way, Um,
Well, and this is
and
one too. Yeah, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, as I see that a lot of people, I think, narrow down what they can actually get
Yeah.
because of that.
Yeah. Well, and I was just thinking, some people listening might be thinking, okay, that sounds great, but that's what I'm used to doing. That's kind of the model that I have. How do I do it different? How do I think of it differently? Right. And again, I mean, part of this, and again, it's about releasing and surrendering because that is part of the spiritual process, right? As long as you continue to try to control, manipulate, make things kind of fit in the way that you want them to happen, you're limiting your possibilities. But you're not also open to hearing or seeing things in a different way, right? Which again, that's part of
Mm-hmm.
spiritual evolution. And so let's just take that example, right? I mean, most of us would sit there and say, oh man, I really need $10,000 this next month, right? Need $10,000 next month, right? Needing means you don't have
I
it.
don't have it. Yep.
I don't have it, right? And so you're casting black magic spells on yourself by saying the word need, right? So we want to get rid of the word need, is one thing that you want to get rid of. Why does it have to be $10,000, right? Why do you have to limit it? Why does it have to be that client, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so instead, you can say some more general things. And even from a manifestation, perspective, a lot of time people will say something like, I'm grateful that I have 10,000 or more every month in revenue. Again, just making up numbers, right? And making it up.
Mm-hmm.
But you can see a difference in the energy of, I am so grateful that every month I generate at least $10,000 in revenue,
Mm-hmm.
right? That has a totally different energy to it than I need $10,000 this next month, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that already taking the word need out, changing it a little bit, of being coming from a place of gratitude as opposed to a place of want and need, right?
Mhm. And the fact that you're saying
Oh
that you already
please,
have it.
universe, yeah, oh please, universe, give it to me, as opposed to I'm grateful that I have it, right?
Yep.
Makes a difference. But it can even be, and some of the things that I kind of say to myself too is it's like, obviously, running a business, I'm reaching out to certain people, I'm doing ad campaigns, I'm having, prospective client calls. And of course, there's a part of me that's like, hey, if Brad and I are talking, oh yeah, Brad, I would love you to be in my coaching, you know, executive program, right? And the fact that I'm with him, talking to him, right? There's a part of me that's like, well, I'm talking to you because, I think it would benefit you.
Mhm.
But then what's the energy that I'm putting out there too? Like, oh my gosh, if Brad doesn't do this, everything's going to go sideways. And oh, Brad, you really
Which
have
is
to do
probably
this.
true. Yeah.
And
No, it's
Brad, right? And so then I'm going to start trying to use manipulative tactics. And again, these are ones that you're taught all the time, right? I'm supposed to put Brad in fear and make him realize that if he doesn't buy my whatever it is, that his life is going to go to shit, right? Because that's how we're taught to sell things. But is that a very good way to sell it from a higher vibration and a spiritual standpoint? Probably not, right? More instead of, hey, Brad, here's what I have to offer. Would you like it or not? It's up to you, right? I think it would be good for you, but you have to make the decision. I'm not going to twist your arm. So what's it going to be,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. And
And
the front way comes
that
with
again has
desperation.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
it has a totally different energy to it than
Hmm.
desperation of me trying to convince Brad. Now, am I going to sell as much? Maybe not, right? Because if I use the tactics that people teach, right, they're taught for a reason because it generates revenue.
They
But
work.
I don't want blood revenue, right? And I'm using that term. You probably know about blood
Blood
diamonds and other
diamonds. Yeah.
things like that, right? Where people are profiting off of slavery, off of mistreatment of other people, and they're making a lot of money off of it. I don't want my revenue to come that way, right? So I don't want to manipulate or coerce somebody and make them feel bad to give me money. That's not good karma for me, right? So I would rather have fewer sales or have money come in other ways, right? That the universe is still taking care of me. And so one of the things that I say, some variations of this is something like, bring those people who I need to help or who need my help, right? Allow all those people who need my help to find me, right? And again, that's different because I'm not worried necessarily about where it's coming from. And it comes in the weirdest forms, right? Like even this week, right? I mean, I had what was interesting is, I went and I gave like a free speech to a local government group down in Phoenix. Okay, normally I don't do that. I normally don't give free speeches anymore. But it was a topic that I was passionate about. I wanted them to hear it. So I took the day and I drove down there and gave them the speech for free, right? They didn't reimburse me for anything. They didn't pay me for my time. They didn't do anything. I went down there. I did my best at bringing, the energy that needed to be there. So people got the message. They felt better leaving than they did when they were first there. Great.
Mhm.
Come back home, right? Again, no expectation. I'm doing that just purely for the benefit of those people because I know that their life will be better. And literally, the topic I was sharing on, it's going to save some people's lives because it was around stress management and some different things like that. Okay. Well, then I get contacted, last week by a company that says, hey, we needed an hour session and we need it done on this day. And so guess what? Next week, I'm presenting the same exact speech, only I'm getting paid for it now. I didn't go out, I didn't beg, them, but they found me, and I was somebody who could help them, and the universe brought them to me, right? In a way that, again, I normally don't do some of this team training like that much anymore. I haven't really marketed for it. But here it was, the universe sending someone to me because I had been saying, allow those who need my help to find me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Allow those who need my help to find me. And then I don't have to worry about it. I just stick to my plan, right? I have to do my work. I have to do my social media posts. I have to send my emails, but I'm not concerned that, money necessarily is going to come from a specific email or post or anything like that. I'm putting information out there so those who need my help can come. And it's not just in a business sense either, right? Because as I've said that too, I've had, certain people in my life who have reached out to me, right? Like one of my siblings, something was going on. And the first thought in her mind was, I needed to talk to Jason about this. Right. I'm not getting paid for it. It's not, but it was something where I could help. Right. And as I help, whether I get paid for it or not, somehow the compensation, somehow the spiritual evolvement comes, right, without me having to be concerned about how and when it's actually going to come.
Yeah, and that's a good point, that sometimes what we get is not tangible, it's not visual, it's not something that we can see, we don't realize it maybe, but it could be karmic. It could be something that's a karmic thing for you. It could be just the fact that your energy has changed and it's more positive now. The good feeling inside, or I mean, it doesn't have to
Well, in the
necessarily be.
relationship that was a little bit rocky, now all of a sudden is not because
There you
of the
go.
changes in you, right? And it's like, but we don't even stop
Mm-hmm.
and realize, whoa, right? But there is, like you said, there's a lot of intangible benefits too. We always tend to want to think of it in money terms because we're
Mm-hmm.
mainly in business.
ROI and stuff like that. Exactly.
Yeah, yeah, but it doesn't always come that way.
Yeah. Yeah. My somebody on LinkedIn was talking about the idea of dark social, and the idea that there's a lot of um, things that you can't really put an ROI on when it comes to things you put out there. The good feelings you put out. It may change their lives. You never realize it. There could be a lot of impact that you have that doesn't correspond necessarily to a line on the budget or on your, financial sheet. But it's still something that's going out there. It's just something you can't really track. And so people are kind of realizing that, there's something out there. It's kind of like, if you want to get into kind of some physics and stuff like that, the idea of dark matter.
Mm-hmm.
It's out there. We can't see it, but we just know that something has to be there to account for discrepancies in mass of the universe or different things like that. And this is, I think, something similar, is that we can't necessarily define what this is, maybe, or find a monetary value. Like you said, that's what we like to do as business people for what we're doing, but there's still impact. It's still having value there. And that's something we just kind of have to trust that's
Mm-hmm.
out there, and
Mm-hmm.
have faith that that's happening.
Well, and I think because this is an interesting point too, maybe to kind of highlight the difference of, for people that are listening, it's like, well, where am I on the path? How am I doing? Right.
Yeah,
Well,
we
if
talked
you're,
about that an episode or so ago, but yeah.
yeah, and if it's so like in this instance, if you're being nice to somebody because you're like, oh, I want to get paid back somehow because of this. I'm going to be nice to this person, and I'm going to expect either the person to be nice to me or something else to come because I'm doing it out of some expectation that something is going to
Mm-hmm.
come back to me. And it's normal. It's normal. We all tend to do that at different points in time, but is that your intention, or is your intention, I'm going to smile and talk to the cashier because it's the right thing to do and I want to do it, right? And we don't have to keep track We don't have to keep track. The universe is keeping track. The universe will balance everything back out, right? Just do things with the right intention, and karmically you will get your reward, right? And it's I've seen this even again in business where somebody has screwed me over, right? And it's like, but somehow the universe makes up for it. It wasn't my fault. The other person screwed me. They have their karmic thing to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
But somehow the universe comes and makes it whole. Right. And sometimes it is. It's like that where somebody screwed me out of 10 grand, let's say, right? And all of a sudden, some 50 grand drops in. And it's like, okay, Jason, we know this person screwed you. We're taking care of them. Don't worry. They've got their karmic path to deal with. You did what you needed to do. So here you go. Right.
You're 50 grand. Yeah.
Yeah. 50 grand. Right. And again, it's not always that way. It's not always instantaneous, but that's one of the universal cosmic laws is there is balance. There is balance and in the universe, and everything will balance itself out. And so, again, it's like walking into the unknown. We talked about a lot of different things here, right? But even that of, not controlling, not having expectations, but just doing and just taking one step at a time, realizing that if you just keep doing that, that eventually you're going to get to somewhere. It's probably different than where you thought you were going to be, but hey, it's probably going to be better than you could have even dreamed. Right. And so maybe to kind of close this whole idea of unlimited possibilities. I mean, how do you kind of see that, Brad? Because I think that's one thing that if people aren't willing to walk into the unknown, if they aren't willing to give up the control, they never have an opportunity to see unlimited possibilities.
Yeah. I mean, because by definition, pretty much we are limited in what we can imagine. Like you may say, picture all the ways that you can make 10 grand. Then you could, start making a list of, well, I could sell this service. I could donate a kidney. I could, find it in the back, a hole in the backyard. Like you go through a list and you could come up with a list of ways that you could come up with 10 grand. Right. But there are many ways that you could come up with 10 grand that aren't on that list. Things that never came to you based on your background, your history, your perceptions, your life experience up to this point. And when you are thinking about how you want something to happen, you're just narrowing things down to that which you know, or that which you can put on a list. But there's so many things beyond just that list that could be. A mermaid could walk up to my door and hand me 10 grand. Not something I would ever think about. I'd put on a list, but am I going to say, I'm sorry, mermaid, you weren't on my list? No, I'm not going to accept your 10 grand. Right. Or maybe she gives me 20 grand. Like it's even a better deal. But we, focus on these things, but there's just so much more out there. And one of the beautiful things is that while there's still this idea of the unknown, of us not knowing what's going to happen, the possibilities are endless. We don't know where we're going to head. So that means we could go anywhere. But once we start saying, well, I'm going to go to Tacoma, let's say, then I know that, that's kind of limiting down where I'm at and where I'm going. I'm not going to find myself in Brazil or in, wherever. It's going to be going towards Tacoma. And so by definition, the fact that we're narrowing down what we're wanting starts precluding other things out there, that may be better for us, that may be better, more in our best interests, but we don't know that because we don't have the awareness, the knowledge of the universe does.
Well, and it makes me think too, the word miracles, right? Because again, when we use the word miracles, it's something that we just never imagined could be a possibility, right? And so to me, a lot of times unlimited possibility is some of these miracles, right? And one of my friends, regularly, kind of the way she prays, if you will, is something to the effect of, I'm grateful for, or show me miracles every day. And I think that's actually kind of a very interesting tie-in to kind of what we're talking about today too, is, hey, universe, I'm going to surrender, right? Obviously, there's some things that I'm working on that I need to do, and I'm trying to do my best over here, right? But show me miracles every day. Show me the magic every day. Surprise me with some of these good things, because I'm willing to accept them, right? I want miracles. I want magic in my life. And as you start to say that or do that, these things will start to show up, right? Because I've seen it in friends of mine who kind of say that these sorts of things. I've seen it in my own life too, right? It's like, just like yesterday. I mean, one of the people that I do some favors for, that I help out, right? I was talking to them yesterday because they had a question about something, and so I was just answering it as a friend. And at the end of the call, they said, I want to send you a little bit of money. I'm like, okay. I wasn't expecting it. It was a miracle out of the way. I mean, it was, again, nothing that I had anticipated. I was just showing up to help somebody that I know, and answering, on a 10-minute call. But this person was grateful and said, I know you've done a lot to help me the last little while. I'd like to give you a little bit of money. So, great from their standpoint, great from my standpoint. I never saw it coming. I never would have thought about it. I'd chalk it up to being one of those miracles, and it's like, again, it's not like I needed the money, but I'm grateful for it too, right? That a lot of times things come in that way. I mean, I had an email yesterday that a deposit is on my way to my account, and it was money that I wasn't anticipating either, right? I mean, so these little miracles can happen if we don't try to control everything, if we're willing to walk into the unknown, right? And I know sometimes it can be a little scary, like, yeah, show me a miracle, but it better be the miracle I want.
Right.
That's not what we're talking about, right? It's like, no, show me the miracle, and I'm open and willing to receive whatever you're going to send, because I know whatever you're going to send is in my highest and best use.
Yep. That's what I got.
And with that, Brad is speechless, which means everyone listening, we must be at the end of this episode. Yep. Well, everybody, so just have a little faith, and again, we're talking about this because everything is spiritual, and having a little bit of faith, walking into the unknown, letting go of some of that control and surrendering, being open to unlimited possibilities and seeing miracles and magic happen in your life. And then just start trusting yourself, right? Because again, it's I think a lot of times we don't want to move in the dark room because we don't trust ourselves, right? Or I'm hearing a little something, but I can't quite figure out what it is, in the other room. And so we choose not to trust ourselves, like, no, until I can see it, and with my 3D eyes, I'm not going to go there, right? But what if you started trusting yourself a little bit more, right? What if, when these little things came along, you said some of these mantras, you did some of these things, were asking for miracles, and then when you feel those little nudges coming along, even when they don't make sense, you just do them anyway, and you just trust yourself. See what kind of miracles and unlimited possibilities can come in your life. And the only way that you kind of get through that is to practice a little bit, to try it a little bit and see what happens, right? Because I know when I've trusted myself, when I've walked into the unknown, into the dark, when I've surrendered, great things have happened in my life and continue to. Now it's just up to me to continue doing it every day. And again, some days I do better than others, but my intention is to do my best every day. And when I do my best every day and I take that one or two steps, more is opened up to me at that point.
Yep. Well said. So hopefully everybody, that kind of strikes you a bit. Again, there's a lot in there, I think, because it is tough to, I mean, and this goes towards letting go, get rid of attachments, to try to give up control of things, the feeling, the need to know what's going to happen every step along the way. And I know it's tough, especially for us analytical thinkers who like to plan things out and like to know that we're going to go with the 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. And sometimes the best thing is just to, let's say, I'm going to go 1 to 2 and see where it takes me, and just kind of have a little bit of faith in it, and see, let the universe decide what's in my best interest, because it, in its infinite knowledge and wisdom, knows better than I do what's going to be best for me. So,
yep. So embrace the unknown. Go out there, try a few of these things this week, and we'll see you on the next episode. Have a great rest
see
of
you
your
guys then.